This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning, Rabbi Glatstein. So last year before Tisha B'Av, I want to discuss some of the inyanim of Megillas Eicha. Who wrote Megillas Eicha? Yirmiyahu Hanavi was probably the most despised, detested, hated prophet in our history. We did not like him. He lambasted us for 40 years, and we took it out on him. We threw stones at him. We threw him into a pit. No Jew would dare remove Yirmiyahu from the pit. They needed to get a black man to take him out of the pit. A Cushi had to come and take Yirmiyahu out of the pit. No Jew would dare take this guy who is bombarding us with Musar for 40 years out of the pit. Yirmiyahu Hanavi was born on Tisha B'Av. He cursed the day of his birth. How do we know Yirmiyahu Hanavi wrote Sefer Yirmiyahu? Well, the Gemara says in Baba Basra, but also you look at the words, Ani hagever ra'ah ani b'shevet avrasai. That is Perek Gimel of Eicha. The Mefarshim point out, you have on your sheets number 5, the Stipler points out, the Gematria of Ani hagever is Yirmiyahu. The Gematria of Ani hagever is Yirmiyahu. These are Gematrias the Stipler thought of Ben Gavra LeGavra. By the way, the Matei Moshe also brings down this Gematria, and he says you learn from here that when you write a Sefer, you're supposed to be meramis to your name in the name of the Sefer. So Yirmiyahu Hanavi, who wrote Yirmiyah, he alluded to his name in the words Ani HaGever. Now it's very interesting. Yirmiyahu Hanavi did not write Eicha at one time. If you look at Eicha, Perek Aleph begins with the word Eicha. There are 22 psukim according to the letters of the Aleph Beis. Perek Beis begins with the word Eicha. There are 22 letters, 22 psukim, according to the 22 letters of the Aleph Beis. Perek Gimel, all of a sudden, does not begin with the word Eicha. It also goes by the Aleph Beis. The only thing is, you have 3 psukim for every letter. 3 for Aleph, 3 for Beis, 3 for Gimel. How many psukim? You have 66 psukim in Perek Gimel of Eicha. Oddly, it doesn't begin with the word Eicha. Why doesn't it begin with the word Eicha? Why in Perek Gimel are the psukim so short? In Aleph and Beis, they're very long. Very long pasuk. And in Perek Gimel, Ani Ageroni B'Shevet Avrasai. Right? No. It's bam, bam. Some of the psukim don't even have an asnachta. It's Vani Vamrorim El Vani Lana. The shortest psukim you'll ever find. Perek Aleph, the psukim are long. Perek Beis, the psukim are long. Perek Gimel, it's like bullets. Bum, 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 bum. Every letter has 3 psukim, but they're very short. Why?
Those were written by Yirmiyahu.
Perek Daled, again, begins with Eicha. 22 psukim, according to the letters of the Aleph Beis. Perek Hey, you also have 22 psukim. But we dropped the Aleph Beis business. Why do we drop the Aleph Beis business? Also, another interesting thing. If you look, this is pointed out by the Gemara in Sanhedrin Daf Kuf Daled Amud Beis. The Gemara says that even though the psukim go according to the letter of the Aleph Beis, the pei and the ayin are interchanged. In Perek Beis, Patzu Alayich PM comes first, Asa Hashem Asher Zamam comes second. Pei comes before the ayin. Perek Gimel, Pei comes before the ayin. Perek Daled, Pei comes before the ayin. And for some odd reason, in Perek Aleph, the ayin comes before the Pei. I mean, you want to go backwards, you don't want to go. Make up your mind. You want to do things forwards, you want to do things backwards. Why in Perek Aleph is it forward, and from there on, is it backward? So let's get a little bit of the history of how the Sefer was written. So let's get the history of Sefer Eicha. Yirmiyahu Hanavi began by writing Perek Aleph, Perek Beis, Perek Daled. Whereupon he presented it. Now where did he write it? He wrote it in jail. Now, we didn't like Yirmiyah, but as much as we didn't like him, the king hated him even more. Who is the king? King Yehoiakim. right? There's Yehoyakim, Yehoyachin, Tzidkiyahu. Those are the last three kings of Eretz Yisrael. Yehoyakim hated Yirmiyahu's guts, to put it nicely. He put him in jail. What's Yirmiyahu going to do in jail? He writes Eicha, Aleph, Beis, Daled. He sends Eicha through his Talmud. Who's the Talmud of Yirmiyahu Hanavi? Baruch ben Neriah. He brings it to Yehoyakim. Yehoyakim said, what is this? So Baruch reads, Eicha yashva badad. Yehoyakim says, I care if Yerushalayim is badad. What do I care? I'm the king. Let them, Bacha isivkeh. She cries at night. Yehoyakim says, what do I care? Let her cry. I'm the king. Golsa Yehuda meyoini. I don't care. Darche etzion. Darche etzion avela is good as long as I'm the king, right? Until finally he gets up to Pasukei. Hayut sareha laroish. The king is being ousted. He got so upset. He took a razor. He cut out every name of Hashem from Eicha. He threw it into the fire. That's what Rashi brings down. The Megillah asher saraf Yehoyakim al ha'ach asher al ha'esh. He took out every name of Hashem, and the officer standing there didn't say anything. Normally, if you see the name of Hashem going up in smokes, you have to rent your garment, you have to rise kriya. They did not do anything. So their punishment was, Yehoyakim's punishment was, his body was treated like a carcass and dragged through the streets and was not buried. And when Hashem saw that Yehoyakim was not taking the Musar seriously, Hashem told Yirmiyah to take his pen and to write the most bitter chapter of all, Paragimel of Eicha, Ani Hagever Ra'ani, which is the longest, which is Keneged Kulam. You have the three Eichas, you have Eicha Parak Aleph, Eicha Parak Beis, Eicha Parak Daled, and then Yirmiyah Navi took up the pen and wrote Eicha, he wrote Ani Hagever Ra'ani. Okay, that's the history of Eicha. If you look at number 1, Yirmiyahu Lakach Megillah Acheres. This is after the first 3 prakim were burnt. Vayitna Baruch ben Neriyahu HaSofer. Vayichtov aleh mipi Yirmiyahu. He wrote based on the words of Yirmiyahu. Is kol divrei HaSefer. All the words of the Sefer asher saraf Yehoyakim Melech Yehuda ba'esh. That Yehoyakim wrote in the burnt in the fire. In other words, he rewrote Aleph, Beis, and Daled. Va'od noisaf aleim dvarim rabim kohema. He added on the equal amount to what was there before. In other words, beforehand there were 3 prakim, Aleph, Beis, and Daled. He wrote Gimel, which is equal to Aleph, Beis, and Daled, because Gimel is 3 alpha betas. It's 3 Aleph, Beis. But Rabbi said we still want to try to understand. We still want to try to understand why Perek Aleph, Beis, and Daled begins with the word Eicha and Gimel does not. Why Aleph, Beis, and Daled are long, and Gimel is the Psukim are short. The Maral Miprag says an unbelievable explanation. Says the Gemara in Sanhedrin, why does Megillah begin with the word Eicha? Says the Gemara, the Gematria of Eicha is what? 36. What's the significance of 36? Klal Yisrael violated the 36 Chayvei Krisos. There are 36 Chayvei Krisos. You look at Masechta Krisos, there are 36 things you're Chayiv Kares for. Klal Yisrael violated the 36 Chayvei Krisos. Now let's ask ourselves a question. Did they violate in the times of Bayis Rishon, or did they violate in the times of Bayis Sheni? Bayis Rishon. For we know, Bayis Rishon, they violated Avodah Zarah, Gilui Arayos, Shvichas Damim. Bayis Sheni, they didn't violate Chayvei Krisos. They were Isaac B'Tovig Milas Chasadim. They violated Sinas Chinam. It's not Chayvei Krisos. Says Maral, if the reason why we say Eicha is to commemorate the 36 Chayvei Krisos that they violated, that was only by Bayis Rishon. So Yirmiyah wrote 3 chapters. Parak Aleph, Parak Beis, Parak Daled, all beginning with Eicha, Keneged Bayis Rishon. Why 3 prakim? Avodah Zarah, Gilui Arayos, Shvichas Damim. Bayis Rishon was destroyed for 3 reasons. Avodah Zarah, Gilui Arayos, Shvichas Damim. Parak Aleph, Parak Beis, Parak Daled. Parak Beis talks about Shvichas Damim. Parak Beis, Pasuk Gimel, Gada b'chari av kol karan Yisrael, talks about murder. There are 3 prakim of Eicha connected to 3 cardinal sins. Parak Gimel doesn't start with Eicha, because in Bayis Sheni, they didn't violate Chayvei Krisos. There's no reason to start with Eicha. What Avera did we do in times of Bayis Sheni? Sinas Chinam. The Gemara says Sinas Chinam is equal to all 3. Shkula Sinas Chinam Keneged Avodah Zarah Gilas Shichas Damim. So in terms of how many psukim are there for each letter, there are 3 psukim for each letter. The same way Avodah Zarah has 1 pasuk for the Aleph, Shichas Damim has 1 pasuk for the Aleph, Gilui Arayos has 1 pasuk for the Aleph, Sinas Chinam has 3 psukim for the Aleph. But Yirmiyahu doesn't have to write 3 prakim for Bayis Sheni, they only did 1 Avera. But that Avera was 3-parted, it was equal to all 3. So therefore, Parak Gimel has 3 psukim for each letter. Why was it short? Why was it cut short? Why are the psukim short? Well, when we say that in the times of the second Beis HaMikdash, they violated Sinas Chinam, and the Gemara in Yuma says Sinas Chinam is shakal connected the big 3, the Gemara in Erechin says something else. The Gemara in Erechin says Lashon Hara equals the big 3. So the Chavetz Chaim says we have a steer over here. The Gemara in Yuma says Sinas Chinam equals the big 3. And the Gemara in Erechin says Lashon Hara equals the big 3. Says the Chavetz Chaim, when the Gemara says they were over Sinas Chinam in the Bayis Sheni, it means Sinas Chinam that led to Lashon Hara. Now let's think about that. How is Lashon Hara? You're telling me Lashon Hara is as bad as murder? I mean, come on. I mean, with all the shmuzin and all the musar, it's worse to kill someone, right? In what way is Lashon Hara equal to the big 3? So the Chavetz Chaim says, you know what? You're right. One time you speak Lashon Hara, it's not going to be equal to the big 3. But Lashon Hara is repeated again and again and again and again. If you have a rope made out of silk, it's very flimsy. But you double it, you triple it, you quadruple it, 100 times 1,000 times 1,000,000, the conglomerate of Averos are eventually going to equal the cardinal 3. So therefore, the psukim of Ani HaGever are for a small Avera. It's for Sinas Chinam, Lashon Hara. The psukim are very short. But the repetition of it, the conglomeration of sin after sin, v'chud ha-meshulash lo b'mher yinatek, that's why you have 3 psukim in Parak Gimel for the Sinas Chinam, which is Shakal Keneged, the Gimel Averos. But Parak Aleph, Parak Beis, Pasuk Dalet, Parak Dalet, you have longer psukim. Okay, let's take a look at the Maral inside in number 3. The Seder Yirmiyah, Gimel Eicha Maschilin Be'eicha. You have 3 Eichos. They begin with the word Eicha. Ve'ilu ani ha'gever eino maschil be'eicha. Parak Gimel does not begin with Eicha. Kinira Gimel Eicha Yasad al Churban Bayis Rishon. The 3 Eichas are connected to the destruction of the first Beis HaMikdash. But ani ha'gever Yasad al Bayis Sheni. Ani ha'gever is connected to the second Beis HaMikdash. Umebnei ki Bayis Rishon Charav B'shvil Gimel Dvarim Avodah Zarah Gilui Arayos Shvichas Damim L'kach Keneged Zeh Yasad Gimel Eicha. Ve'ilu ani ha'gever, but ani ha'gever hu meyusar ha'churban Bayis Sheni. That corresponds to the second Beis HaMikdash. Ve'yesh ba Gimel Alpha Beta, and has 3 Aleph Beis. Ki mimnei shenechra Bayis Sheni al Sinas Chinam, ve'yishkula Keneged Gimel Chatoim, Avodah Zarah, Gilui Arayos, Shvichas Damim, Kedeisam Emsachas Yuma, Sha'amru Sham, Melamed Sheshkula Sinas Chinam, Neged Avodah Zarah, Gilui Arayos, Shvichas Damim. L'kach yesh ba'ani ha'gever Gimel Alpha Beta, Mimnei shu meyusar churban Bayis Sheni. And that is why L'kach le'pasach be'eicha. That's why it doesn't begin with Eicha. Because in the Bayis Rishon they were Balei Aveira. They violated the Lamed Vav Chayvei Krisos, like it says in Yecheskel. Okay, look at the next paragraph. So now you ask, what about the 5th parak? The 5th parak is not in the order of the Aleph Beis. So we have the first Beis HaMikdash covered, Aleph Beis and Dalet. You have the second Beis HaMikdash covered in Parak Gimel. What's Parak Hey? Says Maral, after the 2 Batei Mikdashim were destroyed, we have one last tragedy, the Churban of Eretz Yisrael. However, it doesn't go by the order of the Aleph Beis Why? Because the Maral says the Beis Hamikdash is something that transcends to the beginning of time. It's the origins of why God had created the world. God created the world for the Beis Hamikdash. So it goes by the arrangement of the Aleph Beis to demonstrate that the Beis Hamikdash is something that originates from the beginning of time. Masha'in Kain, Eretz Yisrael itself, which does not enjoy this privilege, and therefore the last parak in Eicha, says Maral, does not go according to the order of the Aleph Beis. Says Maral that it comes out that Yirmiyahu, when he wrote Kinos, when he wrote Eicha, he was commemorating 3 tragedies: Bayis Rishon, Bayis Sheni, and Golos. That is why in Sefer Yirmiyahu it says Yirmiyahu cried 3 tears. B'damaya tidma eini, v'atered eini dima. It's in Yirmiyahu Yud Gimel Yud Zayin. B'damaya, that's 1 tear. Tidma, 2 tears. Eini, v'atered eini dima, the 3 tears, Bayis Rishon, Bayis Sheni, Churban Yerushalayim, and Golos. Then the Maral offers a completely different approach. Maral says, within the Golos, within the tragedy, there were 3 things that happened to us. Number 1, Golos, we were exiled from our land. Number 2, the sword. They killed us. Number 3, hunger. Got it? Exile, murder, hunger. These 3 tragedies affect the population differently. Now there are 3 elements of the population. You have men, you have women, you have children. Murder affects everyone equally. If you're dead, you're dead. It doesn't matter if you're a man, a woman, or a child. Exile. Who is most affected by exile? Women. You know why? Because men are never in the house. They don't like to be in the house. They like to be out. Women, at least they're supposed to be in the house, right? And by nature, they feel comfortable in the house. The sphere of excellence, the sphere where women have success is called Kvuda Bas Melech Penima. So women are the ones who suffer the most from exile. Hunger? Who's affected by hunger the most? Children. At least adults, they could somewhat fend for themselves. They have, they have something stored up. They have some excess, body weight. Children are most affected by hunger. Says Maral, Parak Aleph, Parak Beis, Parak Daled are connected to the 3 tragedies. Golos, Cherev, Rav. Why? How do we see that? The beginning of Eicha, Parak Aleph, Eicha Yashva Badad, that talks about the Golos. How do we know that talks about the Golos? You look in Pasuk Gimel, Galsa Yehuda Me'oini, talks about the Golos very explicitly. Who's affected most by Golos, Rabbi Isai? Women! Parak Aleph of Eicha is written B'Lashon Nekeva. The entire Parak Aleph is written B'Lashon Nekeva. Eicha Yashva, B'Chai Sivkeh, Galsa, every Bisulei Seha, Parak Aleph of Eicha, for some odd reason, is written B'Lashon Nekeva. Why? It's Keneged Golos. Golos affects the women. Okay. Parak Beis is the sword, explicitly. Bila Hashem v'loy chamal. Haras, he destroyed. Pasuk Gimel. Goda, they were cut off with the sword. Dalet, Darach Kashte, the arrow, it's talking about murder. Pasuk Hashem ka'oyev. Shiches nifsarav. So Parak Beis is talking about murder. Parak Beis is not written B'Lashon Nekeva. Parak Beis is written B'Lashon Zachar, because it's connected to Cherev. And then finally, Parak Dalet, excuse me. Parak Dalet is connected the hunger. It talks about the children. Look in Parak Dalet Pasuk Aleph. Tishtapechna avnei kodesh v'roish kol chutzos. Pasuk Beis. B'nei tzion hayikarim. It talks about the children. It talks about the mothers who weren't able to nurse their children. So Pasuk Dalet, Parak Dalet is connected hunger, connected the children. So Rabbi Glatstein will ask, what's Parak Gimel then? If Parak Aleph is Keneged Galus, and Parak Beis is Keneged murder, and Parak Dalet is Keneged hunger, the children, what's Parak Gimel? Says the Gemara in Baba Basra, there is something that is equal to exile, murder, and hunger. Shavi, captivity. So a well-known Gemara in Baba Basra and Daf Chesam Beis. Shavi isnahu kulahu bai. Captivity has all three. Why? Because if you're taken captive, they could exile you, they could murder you, or they could starve you to death. You're at their discretion. They could do any of the three. Parak Gimel of Ani HaGever is the parak of captivity. And since it's equal to all three, that's why Parak Gimel has 3 psukim for every letter of the Aleph base. So you ask, why are the psukim short? Because in captivity, it's only the potential they could kill you. It's only the potential they could starve you. They're not actually doing it yet. That's why the psukim are short in Parak Gimel. That's how the Maral understands the format, the structure of Eicha. Either Aleph, Beis, and Dalet are Bayis Rishon, and Gimel is Bayis Sheni. Rishon begins with Eicha. Rishon are the Chayvei Krisus. Rishon are the biggies, that's how the Psukim are long. Parak Gimel is Keneged Sinas Chinam, which is Shakol Keneged Kulam, that's why the Psukim are short. Or Parak Aleph is Keneged the Golos, that's why it's written in Lashon Nekeva. Parak Beis is Keneged the Cherev. Parak Dalet is Keneged the Rav. Parak Aleph is Nekeva. Parak Beis is Zachar. Parak Dalet talks about the children. And Parak Gimel is Shavi, captivity, which is equal to all three. Okay, I'll give you a few questions to think about on Eicha. How many days do we have in the 3 weeks? 3 weeks. 21 days, right? Everybody knows, 21 days. Even the Roikeach, look at number 6. Hisiguha bein ha-mitzarim. Right, you know where the expression of bein ha-mitzarim, where does it come from? It's a pasuk in Eicha. Kol roi defeh, hisiguha bein ha-mitzarim. If you take the gematria of hisiguha bein ha-mitzarim, it's the same gematria as Hema Chaf Aleph Yomim Yud Zayin B'Tamaz Ad Tisha B'Av. The numerical value of Hisigua Bein HaMetzarim are, those are the 21 days between 17th of Tammuz and Tisha B'Av. Even Yirmiyahu, when he had a nevuah, he saw what? How did Yirmiyahu see the 21 days? He saw what? The Makel Shaked, the almond branch. Why the Makel Shaked? Because the almond takes 21 days to blossom. And all the Bali Darshanim say you have on the calendar 2 21-day periods. You have Rosh Hashanah till Hoshana Rabbah, which are 21 days of Rachamim. And you have, what? You have Shavas V'Tammuz to Tisha B'Av, 21 days of Din. And I'll let you think about this from today until Mashiach comes. There are not 21 days in the 3 weeks. There are 22 days. It's not 3 weeks. If you keep 3 weeks, you're not a Jew. Yeah, exactly. Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av is Tuesday. So if it was 21 days, Tisha B'Av would have been Mondays. Shavas V'Tammuz would have been Tuesday. So what's this big deal? Yes, from Rosh Hashanah to Hoshana Rabbah, that's 21 days. It's not 3 weeks. It's not 21 days. 22 days. I'll let you think about that.
We said the gematria is a plus minus 1, right?
Yeah, gematria is plus minus 1, but why are you calling it 21 days? Yep. Really? Am I invited to your Suda? Sure. It's a moyed. You know what the moyed is? Kara alai moyed. Hashem made it an appointed time to destroy us. So it's a Yom Din, certainly. Okay. So then you have 20 days. Then you have 20 days. Okay. I'll give you another question to think about. What are you allowed to learn on Tisha B'Av? You're allowed to learn Kamsa Bar Kamsa, right? Again, you're allowed to learn Eicha, Medrash Eicha, Yirmiyah. But what when you get up to Yirmiyahu and you get up to the Psukim of Nechama, right? Kol Barama Nishma Nehi, right? Racham Avaka. No, Yesh Tikva La'achrisech V'Shavu Vanim L'Gvulam. Are you allowed to read that pasuk on Tisha B'Av? Oh no. It's halach and Shulchan Aruch. You have to skip it. All the psukim of Nechama in Sefer Yirmiyahu you have to skip. So someone please tell me, tomorrow morning we're going to be learning, we're going to be laning Kisoy Banim of Banim. 12 of the psukim are psukim of Nechama. The Shulchan Aruch says you're not allowed to read psukim of Nechama on Tisha B'Av. So what are we doing? Laning 12 psukim of Nechama Tisha B'Av morning. We're not allowed to do Nechama on Tisha B'Av.
Maybe we're anticipating that's going to be a Moed. We always have bitachon, and maybe
But the halach is you're not allowed to do that. But that's against the Shulchan Aruch. It's beautiful, but you can't do it. That's the only problem. Okay, tell you another question on the Psukim and Eicha. Parak Daled Pasuk Aleph says like this: Eicha Yuam Zav, alas, the gold has been dimmed. Yishna HaKesem HaToiv, Tishtapechna Avnei Kodesh Beroish Kol Chutzais. The holy stones have spilled on every street corner. Says Rashi, what are these holy stones? What are the holy stones? Says Rashi, look at number 18. Medrash Agada, Kol Revius Dam Sheyatza Miyoshio B'chol Chetz V'Chetz Shenoatzu Bay. Every revius of blood that emanated from Yoshiyahu, from every arrow that was stuck into him. Haya Yirmiyahu Koivrei B'Mekayma. Yirmiyahu came along and buried it. V'Alehu Koirei, and about such a thing he calls out, Tishtapechna Avnei Kodesh. The holy stones have spilled. In other words, the pasuk is saying like this: we know that Yoshiyahu did not allow Paro Necho to travel through Eretz Yisrael to go to Ashur. And Paro Necho said, that's it, I'm coming after you. And Paro Necho, with his archers, shot the body of Yoshiyahu 300 times. They pierced his body like a sieve. Says Rashi, every revius of blood that emanated from Yoshiyahu, Yirmiyahu Hanavi comes running to it, and we even say Yirmiyahu listens to what the dying words of Yoshiyahu were. What were his dying words? Tzadiku Hashem kipiu marisi. I have a question for you. Yirmiyahu was what? He was a Kohen. Divrei Yirmiyahu ben Chokiyah min HaKohanim asher ba'nosos. How's he allowed to bury the blood of Yoshiyahu? He's being metamei lameis. It's a Isser Dairaisa. Right? We look at, wow, what a hero Yirmiyahu is. He comes, he runs over, and he buries every revius of blood. Every revius of blood that he buries, he's over Isser Dairaisa. How is he allowed to do it? It's a good question, no? Meis Mitzvah. He's on the battlefield. There are thousands of Jews there. Right? It's like people say, oh, I had to, something happens. Sometimes, you're giving a share, and something happens outside, and 500 people run out. They needed to help, right? There's mamish, right? Some little kid scrapes their knee, and all of a sudden 30 men run out. Right? Well, it's EF Sherbin, What do you mean? It's not a Meis Mitzvah. Yeshua, it was no Meis Mitzvah. So I want to ask Rabbi Shulman this question. Remember Rabbi Shmaryo Shulman? He said, Avada, it's a good kasha. The Rashash and the Medrash Eicha asked the kasha. So Rashash says that a revius of dam is not matame. Only more than a revius of dam is matame. A revi, that's why Rashi says, Ko revius v'revius. As each revius came out, he buried it. But if it would have been more than a revius, he wouldn't have been allowed to bury it. Okay, let's talk about our ayins and peis. Right? The Gemara says that why in Eicha is the aleph peis out of order? Why is it first a pei and then an ayin? Because we're commemorating the fact, the Gemara says, the Meraglim spoke with their peh what they didn't see with their ayin. They made up lies about Eretz Yisrael. So now the question is, if that's the case, and they made up lies, if they said with their mouth what they didn't see with their eyes, so then why in Parak Aleph of Eicha does it first say Aleph, and then say Pei? Ayin, and then Pei, thank you. Says Rav Schwab just puts it in parentheses. Agavorcha on Parsha Shlach, he says like this. How do you know a Pei comes after an Ayin? Who told you? But there's one of the books of Tanakh, the Aleph Beis book. How do you know the order of the Aleph Beis? Where does it say anywhere in Chumash? First comes an Aleph, then comes a Beis, then comes a Gimel. It doesn't say it anywhere. The only way you know the Aleph Beis is from the first parak of Eicha. It's that's the only way we would know what the order of the Aleph Beis is. So first, the first parak of Eicha has to teach us what the Aleph Beis is. And now that you know what the Aleph Beis is in parak Beis, we could flip it around. Otherwise, there's no source for the Aleph Beis. Tehillim Kuf Yates. What comes first? Yirmiyah or Tehillim? No, Tehillim is in Ksuvim.
It's not even
Yeah, but in terms of conveying that information to Klal Yisrael, Parak Aleph of Eicha is the only way we know what the Aleph is. That's the first opportunity.
Why don't we know Kuf Yud Tes of Tehillim?
What? Oh. Okay, you're right. Correct.
But it was written before.
and Ashrei also.
Saying Tehillim. Tehillim, you're right.
One letter missing.
That's what Rav Shab says. Eicha is the source for the Aleph Beis. In fact, the Shiurim has nothing to do with the Aleph Beis. What is Shiurim? Now, that's why, if you look in the Tamei HaMinhagim, the reason it's called Menachem Av is because all the kinnis are according to the Aleph Beis. So the Nechama is going to be to the Aleph Beis. But that's what Rav Schwab writes, that the Parak Aleph of Eicha needs to be Kaiveya, the correct order of the Aleph Beis. But there's a very nice pshat, another pshat, and why in Parak Aleph the Pei does not come before the Ayin. And that is, the Gemara says like this, that any sheker, that she'ein by emes b'tchilasai, ein amiskay emes, right? I'm telling you good eitzah now. If you want to lie, don't just lie straight out, right? Because then no one's going to believe you, right? So if you want to know how to lie really well, what do? You say a little truth, right? He doesn't like that. If you want to lie good, you want people to believe you, say a little emes, and then you use the emes to masquerade the sheker. Who did that? The Meraglim. They started off saying like this, Af ki eretz zavas cholav udvashu. Efes ki azam. They started off by saying the truth, and this way they would be able to masquerade their lies. So Parak Aleph is the emes that the Meraglim said, right? Af ki eretz zavas cholav udvash. So Parak Aleph is ayin and then pei. But once they got the truth out, then they were able to mahapich the seder, and from there on it's the pei before the ayin. Okay. One last thought.
We all fouled up if the pay comes before the eye.
We'd work it out,
It's technically off by one.
This is 10.
It is a question of the Yad HaMelech. Very interesting question. The Rambam says, in Hilchos Yesodei HaTorah, Perek Zayin, Halacha Daled, that Nevi'im don't get Nevuah whenever they want, but rather they need to sit down, focus, be in a good mood, and be Semeichim B'toivei Lev. Why? She'eina Nevuah Shayra Loi Mitoich Atzvos, V'loi Mitoich Atzlos, Ela Mitoich Simcha. The only way to get Nevuah is to be in a good mood. You can't be sad. Ask the Yad HaMelech on the Rambam. So, one second. They were telling me when Yirmiyah Navi was writing Sefer Eicha, so what did he do? He put on a little MBD, he did a little jig, he drank some schnapps, he got into a good mood, he had some herring, and then Hashem said, oh, by the way, you want to hear something really geschmack? The Beis HaMikdash is going to be destroyed, and the women are going to be cooking their children and eating them. Isn't that wonderful?
Wasn't he in jail? He said he was in jail.
Wait, what is that?
He was in jail.
Why not? Most people would like to go to jail, right? In the other kollel, everybody wants to go to jail, right? They're always they talk about free room service. But anyway, what was Yirmiyah Navi doing? How did he get the nevuah? I guarantee you, he was not in a good mood. He himself says, "B'damaya tidma'ini." He was crying. So if he was crying, how did he get the nevuah? Says the Yad HaMelech, when we say that a Navi has to be besimcha in order to attain nevuah. What's the reason for that? The reason is like this. He says, Omnam, toichan ha'inyan v'tamad varmu, on the fourth line. Devadai ha'oros ruach mimarim karach ha'kodesh ha'nevuah ruya shaloi tia shera rak al nefesh shalema b'loi chisarn klal. The vehicle, the receptacle to receive prophecy has to be someone who has no imperfection, someone whose physical stature is perfect, someone whose character is perfect. In order to achieve this shleimus. And even the Gemara in Saita, the Gemara asks, you can't say Moshe Rabbeinu had a mum, otherwise how would he get nevuah? Says the Yad HaMelech, normally sadness is a product of bad character. If a person's midos, if a person's character was shalem, if a person had the personality, a perfect personality, he would not allow sadness to creep up into his mindset. Normally sadness is considered an imperfection. However, if a person's sadness is not emanating from his personal sorrow because of his limited circumstances, but rather if the sadness comes from mourning for the lack of Shechina, for the lack of recognition of the Rebbeinu Shalom, so then that's not an imperfection of character. That's just the opposite. That is a perfection of character. The mourning over Yerushalayim, the mourning over the lack of Kavod HaShechina is not a mum in one's character, just the opposite. That is the excellence of character. And therefore, Yirmiyahu HaNavi, his Itzavain, his Avelos, was not a mum, just the opposite. That reflected the grandeur of the neshama and the personality of Yirmiyahu HaNavi, and that is how Yirmiyahu HaNavi was able to say kinnis. Shol b'zoicha, tzayim haravi, v'tzayim hachamishi, v'tzayim hashvi, v'tzayim ha'asiri yiyah, l'beis Yehuda, sasin l'simcha l'mayadim toivim, v'ha'ames, v'ha'shalom ha'havu. Everyone should have an easy tinus. Shivzoicha to see b'nachama asiyusha.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.